we ready?
Yes. You are watching the Pan-African Daily TV with Dr. Susan Tata. The Africa we want. Unity, consciousness, our culture, our spirituality, our history. One Africa for Africans worldwide. Motherlands calling its diaspora home. Join my voice. Join my team. Join my campaign. Campaign 21 hashtag 1 million subscribers on the Pan-African Daily TV YouTube. Be a volunteer. Apply now. Be the new Africa. So, good evening, family. Good evening. I hope we are connected with live and all of you can watch us. I see a lot of you already jumping in because you know the king is here, like we said. It's a wonderful pleasure to greet, or I wanted to say to salute, to salute all of you who will be joining this very special edition where we have Professor James Small again that has been absent in our midst for whatever reasons we do know. Today he is here back with us live, and as you can see, so cute. And yes, we actually missed this connection, this torch from him particularly and all the elders. So thank you for joining. If you're connecting from whatever part of the world that you're watching the Pan-African Daily today, we want to wish you a happy welcome home here on this warm conversation. And tonight we are going to listen to what has been keeping Professor James Small indoor. We all know that we've been sending our prayers to him. We knew that, he had a kind of what I say, he suffered a little bit, had a knee operation. We know that. We all have been talking about it on the show. But he is here actually to tell us not just only the operation that he's still healing from. And I really want to thank him that despite the pain and everything, he still had time to always keep in touch with us, to find out how we're doing, to encourage us, to empower us, and just to get a feedback. And yes, that's exactly when you know your elder know that now my youths or my young people are still not ready. I constantly have to keep in touch and to check on them. So it's a wonderful blessing to have you here, Professor James Small, after this while. And I know this day is a special day because, like all of us, we see the period in which we're living in. It's very devastating. We're living in very strange times. A lot of things are happening. And to get an elder and a voice that would empower us and, like from the topic, just stay awoken is already too much blessings that we're having tonight. So I think if we are ready, Professor James Small is ready. And I know he's been very, very current. Prof, you've been, even though in your healing process and the challenges also that you've been through, not just the health challenge, you also had been keeping in touch with the happenings on the continent and in the diaspora. You're well informed about what is happening in Ethiopia, in Sudan, in South Africa, and even, spotlight about the Caribbean and the Republic that it's now, and other issues affecting that your community and your family worldwide. So yes, even though we are not here to actually go into all of those things, we just want to get a moment with you, to just share. There's nothing particular that we say this is a topic for today because it's been a while. We want to find out, how are you just doing? Good evening, Prof.
Good evening, Sister Susan, Dr. Tata. And good evening, audience for Pan-African Daily TV. Yeah, it's been a minute. I went through what they call a knee replacement. The harshest way, they went and cut me open. They took a saw and they cut my knee, and they took the scalpel and they threw it in the garbage. And then they took a titanium artificial prosthesis and they supplant that as my new knee. I cussed myself for weeks on why did you do this? It is so stupid. But I could barely walk with the injuries and the arthritis in the other knee. And there was no way to repair it. So it had to be replaced. So I'm now partially bionic and partially human. So that's cool. I'll only have trouble at the airports. Everything, all the lights will go off. They go off now, and I have not before this. So now it'll really be fun. But I'm healing well. It's the 11th week. It's usually an 8 months to a year journey to get back to what they call normal, if you ever get back there. But I can already walk much better than I did before the surgery. I'm even driving my car, you know,
Oh,
which is ahead of the game. I can climb stairs and all of the things that I couldn't do very well before. So that's good. I mean, the ancestors choose to keep me here. That was a repair job that needed to be done. So the repair was done. And I needed a break. I needed a rest.
yes.
So I've rested for what, almost 3 months, Susan? It's been. I had the surgery in August 21st. The process started July 21st. The actual surgery is August 21st. So here we are in December. And I went, it wasn't easy now. There were days I needed to be helped out of bed. I had to walk with a walker. It was a terrible time, but my children and my wife and my friends, everybody came to support, you know. And so it wasn't a bad time at all because I had when my wife got too tired, one of my daughters was there, or my sons were there, or my neighbors were there. When I had to drive someplace to the hospital, my neighbors would drive me. So I had a very good time because I had a very good African family around me, which comes to how we should start our discussion. The discussion should be about the African family, the restoration of the African family. We talk about, let's build the Africa we want to see. Well, you're not going to build that with white people in blackface. You're not going to build that. You're just going to have criminals that look like you. You're just going to have extortioners that looks like you. You're just going to have oppressors that looks like you. We already have them that look just like us because everybody feel, because the European and the Asians seem to be on the top, that we have to follow them. We have to steal like them. We have to murder like them. We have to sell drugs to our people like them. We have to extort the natural resources of the land of our people to make ourselves wealthy, to aggrandize and ingratiate Europeans. So we're already in trouble with the European in blackface running our 54 nations and our Caribbean nations and our communities in Canada and America. So if we want to build the Africa that we want to see, then we have to talk about building the African family. A family isn't just a woman and a man who admires each other and want to have sex with one another because of that admiration and attraction. And we think the attraction and the admiration that brings us together so we can physically enjoy one another. And we should physically enjoy one another. I got nothing against beautiful African sex. Let me be very clear, okay? But every content has a context. Every content have a context, okay? Sex is a context, a content, but the family is the context in which it should take place. If it is to be the sacred, if it is to be the beautiful thing that the Creator intended it to be. Because in that act, we recreate ourselves. We become the Creator and we carry out creation. There's no higher act. But the thing that leads you to that act shouldn't just be attraction, desire, attachment, and dependency. but it should be true love, which is anchored in the African tradition and the love of divinity itself, which is within the individual. If you can build and strengthen and design the God in you, the divine in you, you will always recognize it in the person you want to be mate with. And if you're attracted to someone that you don't recognize the divine in, back away, because it's a psychological trap that you may take a lifetime trying to get out of. And then feel guilty when you're out thinking you've done something wrong because you never learned what was right. And what is right is that the family is the foundation of civilization. And the man and the woman, not the man and the man, not the woman and the woman, the man and the woman is the foundation of the family. Because you've got to be able to reproduce yourself. Only you, the man and the woman, can carry out God's creation of the human being. That's how God creates human beings, is have the man and the woman come together and become that part of God, that aspect of God that creates. That's what makes it so sacred, the thing that attracts us and brings us together. We tell each other how much we love one another. Many times, what we're calling love is a feeling of security. It's a feeling of respect. It's a feeling of attachment. It's a desire to, be in the company with that person. But love is deeper than that. Love is all of those things. But love is the God in you embracing the God in me and knowing that's what it's doing. That's love. Now that fire will make you go running. You understand? You wouldn't want to let go of your mate at that point. So, and I'm being real serious. I'm trying to make it a little teasy, but I'm being serious because some of y'all can feel me already. And feeling is good because this is about what is really Africa. And Africa is not Europe and blackface, is the point I'm trying to make. Africa has its own definition of love. Africa has its own definition of family. And that may not necessarily be the nuclear family in every instance. Africa has the extended family that involves polygamy when done appropriately, properly, and orderly by the community that is practicing it, not by an individual who chooses to do it. That's not polygamy. That's just hoeing around. Polygamy is something that the women of a community brought together out of necessity because in most instances, at the beginning of time, there's 3 female child born for every 1 male child. And that's still pretty much the same today because you women are much stronger than us. And you come in and last longer than us. And so in those cases where the women grossly outnumbered the men, the community got together and says, how do we give everybody an opportunity to be a part of a loving family and to bear children and to rear them into the future in an orderly, sacred way? Not an individual think, oh, I'm tired of this woman and that one looks cute, so I'm going to say, oh, you come, you be my wife. And that's not the way polygamy works. Matter of fact, the men don't have a role in it like that anyway. The women choose the women who would come into that family, depending on what the needs of the family and the household is, and the needs of the woman are, and the needs of the community as regards the gender situation and equality. So family is the foundation of any civilization, whatever family model is most used. Now, most of Africa never practiced polygamy. A large segment practiced it out of necessity. Most of Africa was monogamous and still is. But we've confused European marriage with marriage. That's not what Africans meant. You know, standing up there in a white gown and go, dum, dum, da, dum. Somebody taking the diamond that they murdered 5 million Africans for and slipping it on your black finger, and you glorifying the diamond. That's the real blood diamond, not the diamond that Africans want to sell to the world. They don't want us to sell our own diamonds to wear on our fingers. They call that blood diamonds because they can't control it if we sell it. So they make rules in the United Nations that say we can't sell our diamonds to the world. Only white men can sell our diamonds. White men in funny little black hats and long coats. Y'all know who I'm talking about. They're all over the world with their little beard. But if we sell our diamonds to ourselves so we can adorn ourselves and look beautiful with it, that's called blood diamond. But their diamonds are the blood diamonds. They murder us for the diamonds on 47th Street in New York and Antwerp and Holland and New City in London, where you see billions of dollars of a diamond every year, and not one black hand owns a single piece of it. But we put it on our finger without seeing the blood of our ancestors and our current tribesmen dripping down our hands. And we glorify and pretending while we simulate, Jesus, keep me near the cross. Well, all those people that came with the Gatling gun had Jesus' cross around their necks. And they murdered thousands of our ancestors. And they took our land. And they say our families was barbarians. And they say our way of life was evil, witchcraft, and demonic. And then they say, let us give you our way, the way of the murderers, the way of the thieves, the way of the invaders, the way of the imperialists, the way of the colonialists. We give you our way. Jesus, keep me near the cross. The cross we put on cemeteries where dead things lie. That's where you want to be near. Oh, Uldu billahi min shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Qul huwallahu ahad. I've come to your land for centuries in the name of this Arab culture. And I've taken your land and I've taken your culture and I've made the way of your ancestors demonic. Only if you regime as I do will I even allow you to live in your own country without attacking you or burning your facilities to the ground, because Africa isn't supposed to have nothing worth having. The Chinese can worship their Buddha. The Indian can worship their Buddha. The Indian can worship their Krishna. The European can worship their Jesus. But who do we worship? We worship their Jesus. We worship their Allah. We worship their Buddha. We worship their Shinto. Who worship Africa? If you don't worship your own mother and you don't worship your own father, how are you going to build the African that the African should want to see? I mean, serious. I didn't mean to come so serious, but serious now. Let's stop playing. Let's stop playing. I still have grown African people telling me that my indigenous spiritual system is evil, while he walks around wearing the symbols of the murderers, the genociders, the invaders, the imperialists, and the colonialists, flaunting it in my face on Sundays or Fridays or Saturdays, and telling me my mother wasn't worthy, that my father wasn't worthy, my grandfather wasn't worthy, my great-fathers wasn't worthy. They were evil, they were witchcraft, they were, you name it. Then if they were that, then who am I? Now we're all about bachelor's degrees and master's degrees and PhD degrees and doctoral degrees and engineering degrees and economic degrees. And we pass junior secondary and we pass high school. With all of this white man learning, you still don't know how to love your mother? Africa? You still think she is something to be seen with shame? You think that the beauty of Orisha that we see emanate out of the Yoruba nation, the beauty of Ifa, the science of nature, the wisdom of the universe as we designed it, is witchcraft? If it's witchcraft, why don't we kill all the whites and kill all the Asians and have our land back? That's what witchcraft would allow you to do. That's what a demon could do. You think that the Obosun of the Akan people, Gianyami, you think we're the devil? You think those in Benin and Togo who say voodoo daha, you think they're evil? But those who came in and destroyed Benin and have our art and fill all the museums of the European and the American world, you think their way of knowing God is good? The way of the how can a murderer teach you about God and love? How can a thief and a genocider, centuries on end, doing this to you, teach you about God and love? And you believe it. And those who nurtured you and loved you only lost the battle because they didn't have the propensity to kill mass human beings on a daily basis with a weapon called a gun that could kill 1,000 people in a minute, like the Gatling gun and the machine guns of the British. We fought them with our spears and with our swords as long as we could. And we stopped because we said we can't let everybody die. And you blame them? You don't know your history. Ever since I've been coming to the show with Sister Susan, I've talked about learning your history, and history will erase the mystery.
Mm.
The mystery is his story about you. True African history is your ancestors' dialogue with you. Say it again. If you know your true African history and you allow it to inform and instruct you, then you're allowing your ancestors to have a living dialogue on a daily basis with you. Then you can plot your road to freedom. Then we can go to our brothers and sisters who practice Islam, the Fulanis, who are coming down in Nigeria and stealing the little girls and raping our little girls and doing all these awful things that Allah would never stand for. I know the Muslim religion. I was an imam. I was Imam Amin Ash-Shahid. I was also a Haji. I am an El Haji, legitimate, before the Rabat Alim al-Islamim, authorized to teach in the Americas. And that Islam that's being practiced against us in Africa by other Africans is not the Islam of the Prophet Muhammad alayhi wasallam, which was an Islam that was born in Africa. This thing we see now is born in Turkey, born in the bastardized Greek descendants who populate Saudi Arabia. It's not the way of the great prophet who studied in Kemet and Sudan and Ethiopia and took the wisdom back to Saudi Arabia and freed them from the Greek descendants. And they allowed themselves to be captured again by the Ottoman, European Serbs, Kurds, and Caucasus Mountain Turks, and had them re-bring Islam after the 8th century that doesn't even resemble the Islam of Prophet Muhammad alayhi wasallam. So you want to teach the truth, you got to study history. And you got to know history. And so me, I'm an elder, and elders have obligations. So I studied the Yoruba. There, I'm Obenjoko Adebayo. I'm a priest of Oya. I'm a priest of Shango. And I sit and study at the feet of Ogun and Babaluaye. Those are our schools of thought of our sacred African science, which we call our spiritual system, as manifest in the Yoruba culture. And if I was to go into my beloved Ghana, there among the Ga, I'm initiated as Niahito Okropon. And I know before I would go, or my leaders, or my Wulamas, would go to have our great Homowa celebration, they would first have to journey to Togo to get permission from the gods that they brought from Kemet. There's only one Africa. We may speak different dialects of the one African language, but there's only one Africa. There's no bunch of different religions in Africa. There's only one religion in Africa. We just have different cultural expression of that one sacred science. And at the foundation of that science is the development of the African family as the very foundation of civilization. So if we want to build the Africa that we want, which means we want an Africa different from this European clone that exists today, and now becoming a Eurasian clone. If we want to have a man and woman different from the holograms of Europeans and Asians running around our capital ruling us, then we have to go back to our ancestors, go back to our history and say, what were they trying to build before we were so rudely interrupted by these murderers? What were they trying to build? What had they built already that the murderers and the vagabonds and the thieves and the imperialists and the colonialists burnt down, tore down, and stole all of our art and put it in their museums across America and across Europe? What had we built that we want to rebuild? And we can't do that unless we become Africans again. You can't do that as a European when African clothing and having African language, but having the mind of the murderer of all things African governing your language and your dress, and of course your behavior. So we're getting ready to go into 2022. We're ending 2021. This thing, this COVID thing, that the Eurasians, the Europeans and the Asians brought down on us. They brought it. No African came up with this COVID. The Europeans and the Asians came up with this thing. And yet we have lived and thrived and not died in Africa. So now they come up with chrome or some kind of chrome and says, oh, it comes out of South Africa, and oh, we're going to block all the airlines to Africa, because they can't figure out why we have survived it in a way that they can't. Even the poison they made for us have been killing them at record numbers. And we are still walking in our markets and Accra and Legon, and Johannesburg. And we're still shopping for our goat and our peas and our rice and our cloth, and we're going home. We have lost some, but the numbers that the Africans have lost to this COVID compared to the numbers the Europeans have lost is extraordinarily small. And somebody is worried. Who will survive the world? Very few of them. And they're scared. You, African men and women, whether you have a medical degree, whether you're a farmer, whether you're an auto mechanic, whether you have a teaching degree, whether you're a psychologist, an engineer, whatever, if your mind have not been restored to being an African, you're a danger to African people. Wherever you are, whatever money you got, how pretty your house is, how fancy your clothes is, how big your car is, you're not worthy of having your name called as an African person, unless you understand how serious this genocide is. The mental and cultural genocide is what's killing us right now. How can we have most of the diamonds in the world and be in poverty? Not one of our people should be impoverished. How can we have most of the gold in the world in our grounds and we living in poverty? How can we have most of the coltan in the world that runs all the cell phones of the world and be in poverty? How can we have the cobalt that hardens steel so that they can build jet engines that won't collapse under the heat in our land and be in poverty? And every time we get one of our brothers or sisters that stand strong or tall, they're either assassinated and overthrown, or they try to disgrace them like they did Mugabe, or they kick them out of the African Union like they did Mother Arcana. We can have differences with Arcana, but she was on point in what she was saying about Pan-African Unity. So what do? We have to know the truth, because truth alone will set us free. And the first truth is the truth about yourself and your own consciousness. The truth that tells you, am I becoming my ancestors again? Because that's all I want to be. Or am I becoming the enemy of my ancestors? Because that is an enemy of me. And so this thing is very important. This future that we're going into, this next cycle of the sun that we call a year, this 2022, that we have a clear understanding of where we want to go. As an African people, it doesn't matter where you live in the world. If you're an African, you're an African. No one can deny you. They need to get rid of all of this foolish European immigration standards when it comes to us moving around Africa. And even when it comes to an African who God has made it so we are recognizable physiologically when we come home. No one can mistake me for a blonde-haired, blue-eye, transparent skin from another culture. They know I belong to them, look or me. They know you belong to me, and I belong to you. So let's get ready to move into the new year, but to build the Africa we really want to see. And that Africa we want to build is the Africa that our ancestors had built and was continuing to build when we were interrupted before the Berlin Conference, and more seriously after the Berlin Conference. Most of us talk about it, but study the Berlin Conference. What happened there? And when you look at that meeting, almost all of the nation represented, they were in their military uniform, getting ready to go to war against Africa with guns, something we didn't have hardly any of. They attacked us from north, east, south, and west with their weapons, with their ships. And then after they got on the ground, they attacked us using many of our own people who they had subscribed through fear and tyranny to march in their armies against their own brothers and sisters, from Ethiopia to Senegal, from Cairo to Congo, from Zimbabwe to South Africa. We allowed the fear of death, when our culture don't recognize death as an end of our journey as a living being, but simply as a transition. His recognize it as an end of a journey. Ours don't. When you were given birth to by your parents, they gave birth to themselves, and they were given birth to by your grandparents, who in giving birth to your parents was giving birth to themselves. So you are both your parents, your grandparents, your great parents, and go back to infinity in your ancestors. Their DNA and their cells, their memory make you up. But if you don't have a history that can stimulate and trigger your memory, you won't ever know who you are. And saying I'm an African as a label isn't enough. Saying I'm an African as a mere label is not enough. You must know the history of the people who's designated by that label so that you can restore the memory of the ancestors that you are. And you must study that dialogue, which they call history, so you can know what your responsibilities to the future is. That's what this whole thing is about. That's what's going forward is about. That's what building the African we want to see is about. We have to understand the simplicity of all of this. We're talking about making sure that every African family, man, woman, and children, have the adequate food, clothing, shelter, safety, and security they need. We have the wealth to ensure that in our grounds. We have to make sure that we control the land in Africa, the labor in Africa, and the resources in Africa. We have the numbers, over 1 billion people on that continent, to do that. Now, unless we're willing to really be real about what building a nation is about, a nation says, I can provide food, clothing, shelter, safety. I can control land, labor, and resources. I can establish families that's based on ethic and moral principles that deals with what we call ma'at, truth, justice, righteousness, harmony, balance, and reciprocity. And those families can come together and create neighborhoods of like-minded families. Sometimes we call them clans or tribes. Either word is fine with me. And those clans or tribes or neighborhoods come together and form greater communities that believes in the fundamental principles that our ancestors have left for us in our spiritual traditions. And we then form nations, the African nation. We are big people. Worldwide, we are over 3 billion people, larger than the Asians. But we've allowed ourselves, and we control more of the wealth of the earth than any other piece of territory in the earth. And you would think the majority of the people of the earth who control who should control most of the wealth of the earth is so confused in their identity that they're the slaves to the minority of the earth who have no love or regards for them whatsoever, except to keep them as slaves under their feet while they rob, pillage, and plunder them, and have no respect for our women or our children. And we African men dare to call ourselves men and to wear this cloth of our ancestors without understanding the responsibilities that comes with being especially an elder in the African community. I don't want anything. There's nothing anyone can ever give me except to say, I know you enough to love you. And if you love me, you will make sure I have food. You'll make sure I have clothing. You'll make sure I have shelter. You'll make sure I have safety. That's all I want. The wisdom and understanding that elders share on our history and our culture and our accomplishment, on the great civilization we built in Kerma before Egypt, on the great civilization we built in South Africa before even Zimbabwe. The great civilization in South Africa produced the Ankh that you see in Kemet 25,000 years before you see anybody carrying an Ankh in Kemet. That's how old we are building civilization. The great civilization that came up through Sudan and then went into Egypt, not came from Egypt into Sudan. The great peoples who traveled from Lake Chad. The Lake Chad of today is a skeleton of the Lake Chad of yesterday. It was 100 times bigger. Lake Congo was 100 times bigger. So we could go from West Africa to East Africa on a weekend, or maybe a week or so, by boat. The people who built Egypt came from all over Africa. They weren't born out of the soil of the desert. They came from West Africa. They came from Central Africa. They came from South Africa. They came from that part of Africa, Northeast Africa, which today they dare to call the Middle East. Where's the Middle West? Where's the Middle North? Where's the Middle South? But to steal our historical artifacts and our historical space, they just took it by military force and called it, oh, it's the Middle East. That's Northeast Africa. History will erase the Eurasian's mystery and allow you to be a student of your ancestors' dialogue, which is your history. When we built Great Zimbabwe, they were still in caves. But forget about all. Let's come back to the Sahara Desert. It's a big desert now. But before there was a Kemet, before there was a Congo civilization, before there was an Angola civilization, in the middle of a Sahara was an African thriving civilization with more water than most countries hold today. You know, Gaddafi discovered it. They call it an aquifer. He discovered there was a river under the desert in the Sahara, bigger than any other river flowing around Africa. And he tapped into it, and that's how he watered Libya. And that was only one of the rivers, not even the biggest one that's still there below the surface. Just remember, if God, the thing you call God, but they call Allah, Oludumare, Yahweh, Yemajah, or whatever, it is omnipotent, it is omnipotent, it is omnipresent. Nothing can exist but it because it is supreme. So what are we? Mere aspects of it. That's African culture, the knowledge of that, to know that, to understand that, to really know who the African really is. We are God having a human experience. What's so scary about that? The scariness is not to know it any longer. We used to know it. And we built our society based on that knowledge. When God, or the totality of all that exists, or what we call the universe, manifests itself as a human being, it manifests as an African woman, and she gave birth to everything else human. She came with the seed already fertilized in her. She's the great Isis and the great Mary. They confuse our concept of our story and thought we were talking about one woman. When you talk about the Virgin Mary, you're talking about all African women. Isis wasn't one person, it's all womanhood. Heru, who they would dare to call Jesus, wasn't about some special one son of God. It meant all children are of the divine. Let me come back to where I was first starting. That means all birth is immaculate, so all sex should be sacred. And that's why we created the institution of marriage, to guard the sacredness of the sex that created the immaculate conception of the human being recreating itself as an aspect of God that creates human. That's African culture, folks. The Yemajah of the Yorubas. It's oh, she lives in the big river. Oh, she lives in the ocean. Yemajah represents that part of the water that can be penetrated by sunlight, photosynthesis. And that's how she gets impregnated to produce life. Olokun represents that part of the water that cannot be penetrated by sunlight. That is the Father. Our culture is about a sacred science and a sacred mathematics that explain the universe to our ancestors, and our ancestors then used that explanation to structure its social ecology and institutions so that they could build the civilizations that they built. No one else can show you a civilization that they built. They can show you some forts and some dungeons and stuff that they built, but they cannot show you a civilization with the writing to support it. So we have to rebuild Africa, young people. I'm 76, walking towards the back door, right? You young people who are here, love your ancestors because they are you. You are your ancestors. And when you neglect your ancestors, you neglect your very personal selves and your collective self. When you pour libation, you're pouring it to yourself. You're pouring it both to that experience you had in another body at another time, and you're pouring it to yourself who is the result of that experience in the other body at another time. You're bringing a unity to them. You're waking the dead, and you're having a dialogue with the dead, because the dead is you, still living. So please, let's build Africa. Yes, we got to be engineers, but white people didn't invent no engineering. He did not invent mathematics and none of these things. You can even go to his own books. There's a man they had called Plato. When they big mucky muck, he was the big boy. He wrote a book called The Republic, and Aristotle wrote The Republic and said that the Republic was the dialogues of Plato. And they give us that book in school to study, especially in grad school. But he wrote another book, the one we know Plato wrote, and they write about it, and it's in all the museums. It's called Phaedra, or Phaedrus. And in the Phaedra, Plato says, the Ethiopian, because that's what the Greeks called us then, the Ethiopian or the African has given the world all of its sciences. This is that Plato telling them back in the day. Then he begins to name them. He said, the African gave us arithmetic, what they call arithmetic, geometry, medicine, astronomy. And he names all the sciences. Then he said, but the greatest science of all that the African, the Ethiopian has given to the world is the science of writing itself. The science of writing itself. Now, this is their man back in the day before any of us are born, right? Telling them what I'm trying to tell you now. And then they had another writer. What was his name? The father of history, they called him. He wrote book 1, book 2 on history, and they consider that to be the classic of the historical foundation of the world. It's Greek. And in that history, he says that even Greece, the very oracles of Greece came from Africa, meaning their spiritual system, their religious system was imported from Africa into Greece. Who's the one they call the father of history? Somebody write it on the screen. You know who it is. And in book 2, Herodotus is his name. In book 2 of Herodotus, the entire book 2 is devoted to things about Africa. So this is not new knowledge to the white man. He's stolen your birthright. He's stolen your identity. He not only stole your gold and your silver and your platinum, etc. He stole your birthright. He stole your identity. He stole your historic identity and tell you you're a barbarian. You live in trees. You're monkeys. But he comes, oh, monkey, I need gold. Oh, monkey, I need diamond. Oh, monkey, I need platinum. Oh, monkey, take me to your pharmaceutical garden so I can learn how to heal myself and go back and make pills and sell it back to you from my pharmaceutical laboratories. He knows who you are, but you don't know who you are. You have to know who you are. You see the statues behind me, all those different ones who I love. They remind me of my soul. Sango remind me of my soul. Oya remind me of my soul. Yemaja reminds me of my soul. on the side, the round thing with the lady in the middle with the fish, that as though they freed down from Haiti, reminds me of an aspect of my soul, that part of me that tells me that I am an imitation or an aspect of the universe itself. And yet, in being an aspect of the universe, I contain the totality of all that the universe and the divine is. But I cannot manifest it in the wrong culture. I have to return to the culture that allows me to be divine again. And now we know what the enemy is. We have the capacity to destroy it, but we can't destroy it being it. We cannot destroy the enemy being it. We cannot destroy the enemy by becoming it in blackface. Dr. Wade Nobles referred to it as the European cultural mimetic infection of the African mind. The covert, the European covert of the African mind. We must kill that virus within us and cleanse ourselves of its residue and restore ourselves with the bits and pieces and fragments of our ancestors, which is our history, our scientific accomplishments, our mathematical accomplishments, simple things. We studied astronomy and go, wow, there's so much going on in the universe. So way back in ancient Kemet, we said, let's build a symbol of it to teach our masses about astronomy, because the masses don't have time to study astronomy. They're busy fishing to feed us. They're busy working in the wheat field and the barley field to feed us. They're busy building homes, making bricks so that they can house us. They're building, growing cotton and other flax to make clothing for us. So how then we who know these things teach them about astronomy? We create the science of astrology. Astrology is a symbolic way for the masses who is not scientifically literate to interpret the scientific wisdom that the scientific literate has discovered. Oh, some of us are doing foolish things with it and playing with it today because we don't know any better. But if you go back to the history of what it is that we've been doing, then we have a greater understanding. Now, I went up in all of these kinds of little esoteric things to come back to the most basic thing. How can we guarantee that our children and our families next year in 2022, everywhere in Africa, have food, have clothing, have shelter, and have safety from the exploitation and the oppressions of the Eurasians and their collaborators in our midst, masquerading as our intelligentsia, our middle-class intellectuals, and our government. Now, everybody in the government is not crooked. That's true. All of our intellectuals have not collaborated to betray us. That's true. But we have to call out the ones that have done it and ally ourselves to the ones who are not doing it. Because Africa can no longer go this way. They will wipe us out, and history 1,000 years from now will call another people without any color or hair like this to call themselves Africans, and we will be no more. Like the Tasmanians, who are no more. I mean, they are, because we are the Tasmanian African, but the Africans who lived in Tasmania are gone. Someone said, if your ancestors are not Yoruba, is it possible to be initiated in Ifa? Ifa doesn't belong to the Yorubas. The Yoruba is practicing an African sacred science, which is the only sacred science, and they call it Ifa. It is not something they discovered. It was something that came from them. But thank God that they were able to save the sacred science in such a organized fashion. Just like if you went to Ghana and you went today up to Latte, outside of Accra, where the great Nana Parabia once taught before her soul went to the ancestors. And you will learn about the Abosun, or Daddy Kofi, and the other great ones, spirits. It's the same system. If you go to Egypt and they tell you about the what do you call the deities of Egypt, it's the same Yoruba system, you know. Even in Islam, I'd rather be Ifa than Muslim. You should, thank God. God bless you, Sister Layla. Even in Islam, they meant to put the system in place. It's called the 99 Pearls of Faith. The 99 Pearls of Faith is the 99 Orishas of Islam. But they don't tell you that. They don't even teach you the 99 Pearls of Faith. They just tell you about it. The 99 names of Allah. Translate them into English to see what they mean, or into French, whatever language you're speaking, see what they mean. And you will see that these are the same powers of nature that the Yoruba is talking about, that the Haitian Voodoo teacher is talking about, that the Abosom teacher is talking about. But they've disrupted and disconnected our culture. So we look at ourselves in the mirror and don't even recognize ourselves because he's disguised it as himself. You know? So thank you, Sister Jenkins, Sister Eleanor. Like that name, Eleanor. How many people know that's an African name? But the Europeans have stolen. El means light. The Anna, it means radiant. Eleanor means radiant beam. And it comes all the way from ancient Kemet, the Kemetic system. You'd be surprised when you start studying your history and erasing his mystery, you see he ain't even nothing but a hologram, pretending to be you. That's right. The European is a hologram of your historical experience, pretending to be you. And then they want to make you a copy of the hologram. But we're going into the 2022, and they've got this thing called COVID on our heads. But that can't stop us from building our families and reclaiming our land. That can't stop us from every household taking 2 hours a week to teach history to their children. Every household where an African lives in the world, set aside 2 hours a week, that's all, and teach the history of our ancestors to yourself and your children. And don't say they aren't books. There's millions, if not hundreds of thousands, if not millions of books on our history written in just the last 30, 40 years. And there's videotapes and DVDs and all kinds of visuals of our great history. Take 2 hours a week, each household, and build this knowledge into your children. Stop practicing their holy days. They call it holiday, do a little trick on your mind. These are their holy days, they're calling holidays. Study the holy days, their holidays, and you see they're all deification of a historical episode out of their lives. And start learning your history and deifying historical episodes of your life. Every African society have heroes and heroines that we should deify. Every day of the year, we should have one or two that we can pay homage to. Create our own holy days and our high holy days that all of us around the world need to pay attention to. Let's understand why they call January 1st New Year. And they're talking simply about the solar drama. You see, when the sun in the winter solstice comes to the shortest day of his life and is considered to die, when he comes back from that shortest day and begins to live again, that's called the birth of Christ. It's near the 25th of December. They put that 25th day there, but that's not the actual day. So they're celebrating nature and cosmology and lying to you by giving you an anthropomorphic mythology to symbolize it that you call a religion to keep you in the dark. Show you something. You go and sit down and watch Leonardo da Vinci painting of the Christ and the Last Supper. Just sit and watch it. I want to uncover the demon for you for a minute, right? And there's a man sitting there, and his name is Jesus. He's in the middle. But he's got a light coming from his head. He's Ra. He's the sun. And on one side of him is 3 persons talking to each other. And next to them is another 3 talking to one another. On the other side is 3 persons talking to one another. Google it and bring it up. And on the next to them is another 3 talking to one another. But what you're seeing in the Last Supper is an anthropomorphic representation from a mythical storyline that represents the 4 seasons. Those 4 groups of 3 represents the 4 seasons, and the 12 represent the 12 months of the year as it evolves around the sun, who's Christ. They're just playing with you. They're playing you. Do you understand? And they got you sitting down there crying, oh, Jesus, hallelujah, my Lord. Save me from the burning hell. Save yourself from the burning hell. He's the burning hell. An institution that would have you pray all day and give you a little bit of money that you have little or nothing of, and watch you go back home and starve and live in squalor and tell you you're loved by God. Man, please give me a break. Give me a break. Go back and watch that Last Supper and watch the game being played on you. You know, our ancestors in our tradition, like Ifa, Voodoo, in the Ekwe tradition, and the Akan tradition, and the Congo tradition, they're all telling the story of the universe as the totality of the creation itself being the divine. And we are aspect of that totality. Stop being afraid. Learn to love again. Learn to love the God in you. Stop putting your body up to be abused, to feel beautiful sensations that you mistakenly call love, just to be left in sorrow and pain and confusion when someone don't understand how to build relationships. This is about building a nation again, a nation of human beings that love human beings, that care for human beings, a nation that would take the best that it's got and build the best medical system possible for its people, that would go and model Cuba. Cuba don't have a lot of big hospitals, but Cuba have a small hospital units all over the country, so everybody have access to medical care at the optimal level. Go to the UN. The Cuban medical system is considered for the last 40-something years to be the best in the world. Why aren't we emulating it? You know, but we'd rather emulate what comes out of Brooklyn or New York or Washington, D.C. or Germany, and their system have failed them. How's it going to not fail us? They come to us and say, oh, take me to your botanical garden and teach me your herbalism so I could go back to Harvard and make it into a pill and sell it to you for a headache with some poison in it that's going to make the headache worse than it was before I gave you the pill because I laced it with chemicals. Come on. Every African nation have botanical gardens. We have our sacred gardens. Every nation, we haven't lost it. It's there. We know where they are. We stay away because they tell us to be afraid of it. Go there, see the herbs, see the fauna, see the medicine, listen to the traditional priests. Me, things go bad in America, shh. I go, hey, Haji, I'm a problem. And he said, oh, Baba, I will go to the shrine. I will talk to them. Tell me the details of the problem. I will talk to them. Oh, your cousin is coming to America next week. I will send you some medicine. When my knee was going bad, right now, everybody think I'm the head of the game. The doctor told me, come back and see me in 9 months. Everybody said, really? You're only 11 weeks out. Yeah, you're walking, you're driving your car. Yes, last night I went to the theater to see one of my friends who I work with in The Godfather of Harlem. And she was in a play called A Slave Story. So we wanted to support her. So I drove into Manhattan and I went to the theater with my artificial knee, and a little cane, which I don't really need anymore. Because when the divine is done with me, they will take this body when it wears out and recycle it into nature.
Ashe.
The energy that is me will find another house and some other beautiful little baby, one of my grandkids or great grandkids, or will divide itself among them, depending on my capacity. And I will be here again in
Ashe.
multiple ways.
Mm.
That's our system as it explains itself. And so if we learn and study our culture, study our history, you have so many beautiful writers in every African nation, in all of the language, and in the West, and in the Caribbean. We just saw a goddess of Rose in Barbados. Have you ever heard her speak? She just booms. She's just so African clear. People say, oh, well, they kicked the queen out, yes, and they're no longer under Britain. Well, give them credit for that. That's a big deal. And maybe now Jamaica will do it. Yes, Jamaica's not free. It's still run by the queen. Trinidad will do it. Trinidad's not free. It's still run by the Queen of England. You understand? So Barbados has opened a door and says, take off the shackles of the UK. Take off the mental shackles of England. And in other places of what's that place? Holland and the other places. And let's just be our mothers and our fathers. The only way they can defeat us is to keep us away from our culture. They can't defeat us with technology because most of the technology of their world, we gave it to them. You know, a black man created the cell phone. You know, a black woman created the touch-tone phone. You know, a black man created the TV remote. You know, a black man from Ghana or Nigeria created the internet. You know, a black-skinned man from England created the what's the other thing? When you send me my mail, emails. And I can go on and on. Their damn stealth plane was created by a Ghanaian. What it takes, the chemical that it takes to make it stealth. Okay? So they don't have no technology we can't create because they took the wealth, the finance system, the wealth they stole from us. They were able to create a technology using our brain, and we still don't get it. Going back into the day, a British guy created a light bulb, could only keep it burning about 5 seconds. A black man created a carbon filament, an African man, that allowed the light bulb to be a practical tool. And I can go on and on and on and on. Know your history, and you will erase his mystery. You know, many of us are running around with our eyes now, and we're trying to get rid of the cataract. Now we can get rid of cataract. Even if you've gone blind, your sight can be restored by something called a FICO machine created by an African woman a few years ago. Okay. That first heart transplant in South Africa, a black man helped him pull that off. You know, the first vaccination did in America was done in Boston, Massachusetts in the 1700s by a black man from Nigeria who was a so-called slave of this doctor, and they were trying to deal with the smallpox. They have nothing that we have not given to them. But because they have our minds, we can't give the same knowledge and technology to ourselves. So 2022, it's going to be a new day. going to be a new day for Africans to say, I want to be free. I am going to be free. I think Asa Hilliard said, freedom is to be shackled to your identity. My identity, no matter how brown I am, is African. Brown ain't nothing but a shade of black. And we got to be clear about it. The blackest black to the bluest black is the mother of our spiritual and genetic soul. Own it and let it own you. I see somebody put it up again. Thank you. 2 hours per week to teach our children about our history will save our civilization. Our civilization is not dead. It's not destroyed. It's just beat up a little bit. We just need to shake off the filth of Europe and Asia and bring our civilization back in full force so we can teach them. This time we will make sure they're civilized if they're here. Before we gave them what became Christianity, thinking that that body of knowledge would civilize them. And when we noticed that wasn't working, we gave them more knowledge, which became Islam, thinking that body would civilize them, and it didn't work. So we know we need a stronger medicine to civilize this beast out of the mountains. We need a stronger medicine to civilize this beast out of the mountains. But we can't do that until we take our mind back. Take our minds back. You see? And so to take your mind back, you got to know your history and you got to get rid of their mystery. You got to love your ancestors. You got to go into that village and you got to watch that woman with the little rubber slippers on, but one of the little things that go between the toe is broken and she's still trying to walk. Her feet is so hurt from walking that it's cracked everywhere. Her dress is torn in half off of her, that she have to hold one hand to keep her breasts in securely. And you got to know when you see her walking towards you that you're looking in the face of God itself and treat her like she is God itself. And then you begin to know what love is. Love is not a feeling. Love is an understanding of the fact that you are the divine having the human experience, and the essence of the divine is recognizable in you. And when properly stimulated, recognize in the others that you will have an opportunity to greet and teach. So, be getting ready for the new 12 months. I see somebody call our sister Susan back in. I see you taking notes, though. She'd be right. But I'm going to shut up. I'm coming back out of my sick bed, and the divine have shown me so much about. Last week I had a dream, and I was sitting on this bed, and there was a beautiful black woman. She was as black as this hat, the texture of her skin. And she lay back on the bed beside me, and she said, "We did not give you the wisdom for yourself. We gave it to you to give to the children."
Ashe.
So because when I come up out of the sickness, things have been so bad. When I saw the medicine bill, it was like $160,000, and I go like, "Oh my Lord!" Even I do have some insurance; they're gonna take care of most of that stuff. But I'm wondering about all the people who couldn't. I go like, and I do a lot of speaking all around the world all the time. I rarely charge any people any money. I said, give me what you can, and give me a hotel to stay in, give me what you can. Plus, I better start charging. And when that thought came to me, that woman came to me that very night and said, we did not give you the wisdom. We gave it to you to give to the children. And I'm thankful that I can communicate with them and they can communicate with me.
Ashe.
And I say this to all of you. Nothing that any of us know that is worthy of being known by our people to do us some good belongs to any of us who know it. No use to us unless we give it freely to all who need it. So for you priests and priestess, charging people thousands of dollars for reading, you better stop it. or the ancestors will take your breath away.
Yes.
You better stop it, or they will take your breath away.
Mm.
One more time. You had better stop it, or the ancestors will take your breath away. Yes, if you're a priest or priestess, you've got to charge something for your work because you do labor and you do research and you mix medicine, but it's got to be within the realm of possibility of the people you serve. You can't see a man walk through your door, you know he can barely feed himself, and tell him to go find $1,000 someplace so you can't give him the medicine. I'll slap your damn face.
Mm.
You should give him that medicine and then put some money in his other pocket and say, go home and feed your children. Then you're deserving of being called Nana. Then you're deserving of being called Baba or Iya. So we want to wear these titles, but we're still acting like Europeans. The ancestors is not for sale. The wisdom is not for sale. The medicine for the health of the people is not for sale. Whatever they can give you to help you so you can keep going, that is your gift from the divine. He will always take care of you like he's always taking care of me.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Learn and study. Teach your children about Africa. Make sure they have a map of Africa so that map can be embedded in their subconscious. Make sure they have a globe so they have a map of the world so they can study and know the different places. And then you can begin to show what your people have done in all these places around the world. Teach your children mathematics. The school system is doing everything they can from Africa to wherever to minimize our mathematical knowledge and understanding. So at your home, it's like you take 2 hours to study the history. After school, after dinner, take an hour every day and just go over some mathematic things and scientific things with the children so they can know and love the math and the science that their ancestors invented that the world all uses, and try to make us like we have nothing to do with it. That's what a good, healthy family would be doing. Exercise together with your children and your husband and your wife and your grandmother and your uncles, whoever live in the house. Take 30 minutes and do stretch exercises every day. You know, look at your food chain. What in the food that may be causing the diabetes? What in the food that we're eating that's causing this high blood pressure that we once never had, we now have all over Africa? What is it that we must now no longer eat? And what is it that's in our environment that we have to now harvest and eat so we can be healthy again? That's what a good, healthy African family would be doing on a daily and a weekly basis. 2 hours set aside to study that history. At least an hour every day just to go over math and science after dinner and everything. And then if you want to watch a nice TV program, then do it. But do that little thing first. So when that baby walk out that door to go in the world by them, without you, among all these other strangers, they walk out with power in their hearts and their minds, knowing who they are. And being confident in what they're capable of doing. And they won't come back home abused and torn to shreds, as so often they've done. So I started this conversation talking about the Black family, the African family. And I want to end it talking about the family. The family is the foundation of civilization. Yes, we've been fractured and we've been broken and we've been hurt and we've been injured, but don't become embittered against even the person who hurt you, because they're broken and fragmented and crippled too. See what the enemy does? He comes in and he cut all of us up. We got all kinds of scars. Then we turn around and blame one another for being all chopped up and all scarred up. We may have to move away from one another sometimes because we do more harm than good. But don't move away with animosity. Move away out of survival necessity as each one go into their healing process. The healing is necessary. Don't blame the victims for the damage done. recognize the victimization of all of us. I'm damaged with all the stuff I'm talking. You think I'm not damaged? Well, I'm every day trying to heal parts of me.
Yes.
Knowledge from my ancestors. Every day I learn something new. Some days I come on Susan and I learn things from Susan. I watch Susan's show with the chief and the king and the others, and I learn from all of them. You know, I watch the people in Happy. I watched my little sister down in Kenya, and I learned something from everybody. Because if we don't learn to learn and love, learn from and love each other again, we'll just be the white man fighting and bickering. My shoes is prettier than your shoes. My house is bigger than your house. Oh, I can drive on a jet. And what does that mean? The enemy will still kill your son. The enemy will still rape your daughter. And you will still have to beg like a baby at his feet for safety. It means you're not yet a man. So the family is made up of the opposite sex. There's no historical experience showing the African family being made up of the same sex, because then you die after that generation. You can't produce yourself. So the African family was made up of the opposite sex so it could reproduce itself and plenish the earth. And stop being afraid of people coming and trying to impose their poisonous way on you. And you go like, oh, I can't say this. Oh, I can't say this. Then die in his hell with him and leave us alone to be free of you and them. Secret to life is to have no fear. The family is the foundation of civilization. That's with the family. The families come together and they build the neighborhoods. The neighborhoods come together and they build communities. And the communities come together and build nations. You must do it because you must supply food, clothing, shelter, safety, and security for each family. That means you must control economic, politics, and culture, land, labor, and resources where you live. And you can only do that if you have an African value system, an African worldview, which comes from knowing African history and African culture. So that's my lesson coming back from the dead, hopefully among the living, as we transition into a new cycle of the sun, which they're calling the new year. That's when we look at the cycling of the sun. But if we look at the cycle of the moon, there's another new year. And we may want to look at celebrating September the 11th, which is celebrated in Ethiopia, which is the oldest new year in the world. Okay. As we look at the cycling of Asar and Aset, they're not people. They're happenings in the universe that our people were celebrating. It was a marker for when something ended and began again, anew. You know, and get that picture of the Last Supper and tell me if you don't see Ra, the sun, the 4 seasons, and the 12 months orbiting the sun. And then you know it wasn't 12 men in some room somewhere in Jerusalem having no Last Supper. Because they created the secret society without knowledge in Europe and gave the masses an anthropomorphic representation and social presentation to keep them in the dark by emotionally tying their hands and their minds while they used the science to control the world. They hear me, you can't touch me, but you already know that. Because our craft never died. I'm a priest of the craft of Amun-Ra, and I reside at the shrine of Hunefa. I'm a priest of the craft of Amun-Ra, and I reside at the shrine of Hunefa. So thank you very much, Sister Susan, for this day.
We are the one thanking you. I mean, you know, like, I don't know what to say. It's just like this message is enough. Like we shouldn't even be here anymore till January when we meet again. But thank you so very much. Like you said, you brought back the voices of the ancestors in this transition. I mean, the knee was just not a physical knee from what we're saying. They had to
Mhm.
break it and put you down and walk on you again. I mean, because when I saw how we started, all of us have been beaten, put down, taught a lesson that we are coming back again to bring. And I see that actually in you, Prof. Like, you know, even that message, that dream that you're talking about. And that's why I was just laughing because like it's just so true. The moment you want to serve and you even think of putting a price tag on it.
Mhm.
I've been beaten and beaten for the past years. And that's why
Mhm.
some people just don't understand that it is not possible for you to serve and you put a price tag on anything.
Right,
Never, ever.
right. You're absolutely right.
Like,
Absolutely
I just want to put it again for those that probably, like, I know a lot of people watching us from the continent. My daughter just showed her face from Cameroon and said, I'm watching and listening, right?
right.
And, you
Yeah, well,
know, yes. And like, just exactly what you said. You were thinking, oh my God, how am I going to pay my 160,000 bill from the hospital and stuff like that? Oh, so and I talk for, all, particularly if the Pan-African Daily would even have to, if you give us a bill, Prof, I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. So, but
The ancestors
then
will
she
always
comes,
take care of me. They
yes,
will always take care of me.
good. But I mean, like, but she comes in and like, we didn't give you to sell because we take care of you anyway. And I think that's the biggest lesson upon every other thing that we've learned here. And we want to thank you so much, Prof. Thank
Well, thank
you.
you for the opportunity. You've created an important and wonderfully beautiful African information platform. There are others, as we were talking this morning. Yours is not the only one, but yours is an admirable one because of the work you put into it. You and Nyasha and your children, we don't see them. We know them boys are behind the scenes, but they make it possible for you to present to the African world a multitude of elders and teachers to bring information to help us restructure ourselves, restructure our families, restructure our attitudes, renew our worldview so that we can see who we are and who we need to be. And you've done that very well. And I know you've been through some hard times over the last year, but you've done good. All people see is the beautiful smile and the wonderful glowing African eyes because you come to your work with all of you intact and you do this work well. And people see us here. And sometimes people talk to me like they talk to celebrity. I'm not a celebrity. When I'm get finished, I got to go cook my wife dinner because she's still working over at that hospital. And so I don't know what I'm going to make her tonight. I got some peas. I got some mixed vegetables. I might make a little bit of rice, but I'm going to wash the dishes, right? My grandson needed a coat and my daughter had not got paid yet. So I took my last money and we ordered him a coat and he sent me the picture. So thank you, Grandpa, for the coat, for the hat, and for the glove. I still have to be all of that.
Yes.
Okay. Every day, you know. I've been with Carol for 51 years. That's my wife. We don't
Mm.
always agree with everything. Sometimes I'm so angry, I feel like just walking away and not coming back. But 51 years to work together, we made a deal. Thank God we didn't have any catastrophe too big to overcome. Sometimes you get catastrophes that's just too big and you can't overcome them in
Mm.
relationships. And sometimes you just get a bunch of little ones. And the thing is, don't let the little ones pile up on you because they'll become too big to overcome. But appreciate all of us with our broken selves and our fractured self. Let's not condemn one another for our fracture and our broken selves. Just let's learn how to live with or without the fractured and the broken selves. Because sometimes I have two children, and I'll tell because I like to talk straight. I have different sisters, right? And I would have married either. But they were not ready for that. I was in a movement, a revolutionary movement, and they didn't want to be a part of that. But I've raised those children, and my babies are. When I was sick with this knee, the eldest one cooked all the meals and drove a couple of hours to bring them to the house. You know, the other little ones, he came over to help serve the meals. You know? And then Carol and I have 4, and they've all been on point. And those 6 love each other uncompromisingly, because I've raised them like that. And then I have 2 in Ghana, where I didn't birth. Right? I adopted them years ago. I went to the family and I said, I want to help these children. And the family was kind of afraid of me. They said, oh, who's this American man? He want to come get close to our little girl. And the grandma said, no, this man is okay. Grandma said, you let him have her. Well, she just finished 4 years in the Ghana Parliament. She lost the last election, but I'm watching her work. Girlfriend gonna win this next election because she's so good. I'm watching her marketing strategy just grow. And she was a good parliamentarian. She needs to become a better historian, and we're working on it. She was a school teacher, high school teacher. And then my son, who lived in the UK for a while, when his sister decided to go in politics, he says, I'm packing my bags. I'm going back home to take care of my sister and watch her back. And he's finished his PhD. And he's teaching in the university, and they're learning African history, and they're studying and trying to work in the communities they grew up in. So this thing of family is real, but you can't always have it all. It's not always all perfect, because we're fighting a war, and we've been injured, and we've been fractured, and we've been broken, you know? And we're trying to do like that white thing, they call it Humpty Dumpty, fell off the wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great big fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men can't put Humpty Dumpty together again. But Humpty Dumpty is an egg, right? You know how an eggshell split into pieces. And so we're going to beat the Humpty Dumpty notion, because we're going to put Africa back together again. We're going to put the African family back together again. The extended family. We're not a nuclear family kingdom. We're an extended family kingdom, where my auntie is my mother, and my uncle is my father. And my big sister is my auntie. And my big brother is my uncle. And that's eternal throughout the family, which is practiced all over Africa today. But we need to raise it up to a sacred level that it deserves to be. It has to be more than just incidental. So that's where we are. That's who we are.
That's where we are. That's who we are. Thank you. We send you all the healings all our way, Prof. And like Sister Kalena was saying, we have to make this a history. But for all of you who are new here and have never been on the program with Professor James Moore, he has a bunch of videos on our YouTube channel. Like I said, I heard one brother from Kenya said, I pick up all his lectures and I teach. That's the best thing that we can do. So pick up from our channels, download it, distribute it, create study groups in your communities, and just learn.
Yes, the study groups is so important.
Yes.
Let me yell to my grandchildren, I'm upstairs. They just came in from schools. They probably think the house is empty. So yes, study groups is another one of those teaching methodologies and tools that we really need. Come. This is my Mia.
Hi, Mia. Oh my God, so beautiful. Hi.
She's all the way from Cameroon. Mia, she's in Germany. And this is my Nasia. He's the prince of the family. So hello, Nasia.
Hi, Nasia, we can't see you. Oh, the screen is freezing.
Mm-hmm.
We can't see him.
Oh, okay, man. Y'all had a good day? Okay. And of course, the father's at the door. He's the king of the family.
To me, it just froze.
Okay, brother. Y'all had a nice day? Okay. I'll see y'all later. What you got? Come on.
Okay.
He wanted me to see something. He's an artist. Too. Everything he does is in red, black, and green.
Okay.
You are the prince. Everything he draws in red, black, and green. It's amazing.
Oh,
And he's been
that's
doing this since he was about 2 or 3 years old. Now he's 8, and he's still everything. He makes sure he gets those 2 things in.
DNA.
Hi, Nikki Love. Yeah, it is DNA. DNA has a lot to do with it. And to just let them know that you love them so much, so no love outside of you can override your love. So they don't have to go searching for love and getting abused and hurt and injured because they didn't know love. That way, when somebody approaches them, they can't just say love. They got to be love because the children are going to recognize whether that's real love or not. You know, this thing about family and love is too important, brothers and sisters. And don't be afraid to challenge yourself and ask yourself. Because the 2 sisters I talked about, who had my first two babies, I love them. I still do. Even though both of them are ancestors now, I still love them. I didn't stop loving them because we couldn't live together. And we didn't have the babies because they just, oh, we're going to have a baby and then I'm going to go away. No, we had those babies out of love. They were my friends. And we stayed in touch and stayed as friends until they left the earth. You know, so we have to learn how Africans should love and how we should be. The young lady that I dated when I was 16, we're still friends. Okay, we call each other, if only once a year, on our birthdays, we will talk to each other. This has been going on over 55 years. The young lady that I first gave up my purity to, she's still my friend. We still talk every other month. She lives in another state. I still love them. I love them for who they were in the space we were in at that time in our growing through life. That don't diminish my love for my wife, Carol, who I've been with for 51 years. And it hasn't been easy. Sometimes I say, oh my Lord, I'm sure she said the same thing about me. You know, so, get rid of that man. What am I going to do with that man? But the bottom line is we're just trying to build an African family again.
Yes.
Trying to get it right. Just to get it right. So we can teach the young ones. You know, so we can have a healthy African community. This people have injured and broken us at the spirit level. We got to heal at the spirit and the culture level. We've won the political war against them, and we pretty much won the economic war. But we must win the cultural war if the other 2 victories is to have any worth and to have value. And only when we win the cultural war will we be able to restore the spiritual integrity of the African people in our mind. But we're getting there. I'm so proud of this generation of young people when I watch them on the YouTube and the internet and the TV and other things. The enemy is not going, I think it was one of our brothers said the revolution will not be broadcast. Well, the enemy is not going to tell us how good we're doing. That's why platforms like this and other platforms must hook up with each other so we could tell each other how good we're doing as a people.
Absolutely.
And how proud we should be of our young people. Never, ever let our young people feel there's a separation between us and them. Because I don't believe in no generation gap. You know, the gap is there if you put it there. We're one. You know, those young people will inherit this earth when we're gone to the grave. So don't let there be no gap between us and them. Well, Sister Susan, I know you have to go. I know at some point.
Oh, me want to go. I think we just appreciate you, and we know that you're still in still healing, and so we also will not want to take a lot of your time, particularly when we know that we still need you before the end of this year. So we better not not chase you away by keeping here. So thank you so very much, Prof. And your grandkids are there. Our love to the queen in the house that has made you this king. To Sister Carol, Mama Carol, Queen Carol, and all the kids out there. Thank you so much for for taking care of Baba Smalls. Thank
Yes.
you.
And
Yes.
keep African people loving being African and never stop fighting. If we think we don't know, fight again to learn to know. I think one of our great sisters, and I end with this, Zora Neale Hurston says, to be there, to be there, to be that African in that African space as that African being, you must go there. But to go there, you must know there. To be there, you must go there. But to go there, you must know there. Sister Zora Neale Hurston. This is a great African queen. So peace and blessings, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Baba. Thank you. Good night. Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you, family. Thank you, all of you. I think we all have enough today and to digest. Tomorrow, we're going to have our also middle elder from the Sudan, Dr. Tony Jaja. He's going to be giving us feedback, about the situation that is not going to dilute what we just listened tonight. On the contrary, loving ourselves means also sharing the pain of those that are actually not in the position to even build a family that we're talking about. A lot in Ethiopia, a lot in Southern Cameroon, a lot in Sudan, in Uganda, and all the other places we know. They don't even have that possibility to sit and say, here are my grandchildren. They're torn apart, houses burned, roasted, genocidal, rape, and everything. And that's the love. That's the love of us missing. Today we gather and we say family is one. The family that is one is the family that understands the pain of each other. The family that stands as one despite our brokenness. So I want to invite you tomorrow. It's not going to be a warm one. It's going to be something that might hurt us. But we have already been equipped to know that the pain of one is my pain. And we are not complete until we are all healed and fulfilling, until we're infinity. So I want to invite you tomorrow. And thank you. Sign up in your numbers, because that's the love in practice that we're saying. And please do share this video, because like I said, it was like an ancestral voice coming, just telling us the basics that we need to do. Family is what we should be talking about. So even if we're politics that is happening somewhere, or we're breaking the highlight, or the situations in the different countries, or whatever, like we had our princess came up yesterday and told us in the local communities, we all know it. Our young girls, most of them don't even have sanitary pad, and we were doing a contribution and we're still on it. Please think about everyone and pray for one another as we do all pray for ourselves. So we see us tomorrow. Good night. Akwaba. Tukupamoja. You are watching the Pan-African Daily TV with Dr. Susan Tata. The Africa we want. Unity, consciousness, our culture, our spirituality, our history. One Africa for Africans worldwide. Motherland's calling its diaspora home. Join my voice. Join my team. Join my campaign. Campaign 21 hashtag 1 million subscribers on the Pan-African Daily TV YouTube. Be a volunteer. Apply now. Be the new Africa.